Hey guys, this is Dan from learningcameras.com, and I've got here for you the brand new Sigma 35mm f1.4. Now, we're going to do a full review of this lens, take it through a bunch of tests, compare it to some of the other stuff out there. I've got a full comparison coming with the Canon 35-1.4 so you can see exactly what it looks like. But overall, this is going to be a great lens in testing. Now, let's walk you through what it comes with. You have your lens here. You have a lens hood that comes with the lens. I've got to say this is one of the best lens hoods I've ever put on a lens. It has a definitive clicking sound when you put it in there. Great alignment tabs to know that everything is together, and it's really much easier to get it on than a lot of the other lenses out there. Now, another thing for you is the lens cap. Sigma goes with a pinch. I'm so glad that they do this. I wish Canon would do this. Actually, it looks like they are. They have a new change in their cap design to go with a pinch one that's going to be coming with a lot of their future lenses. Unfortunately, if you have the Canon 35mm 1.4, you're not going to get that kind of a lens cap for it. So you can take this off very easily with the lens hood on. It goes on much easier than a lot of them. It's a lot thicker than most of the lens caps that I've seen. That's very good. It makes it much easier to put on there. The lens is a little bit longer because of it, but I mean, you're talking an extra 1/8 inch probably. Now, on the lens case that it comes with, it's a great case. It has a lot of padding. Unfortunately, it's really big and bulky. It's a square case with a round lens. You're really not going to fit this in your bag very easily. So I find not a lot of uses for this case other than storing your lens on your desk maybe. But I do like Canon's kind of lens pouches that you can put in your bag just for an extra layer of protection. When you're pulling the lens out of the bag, you don't hit the lens on the zipper or anything like that. You can even store your lenses without the cap on if you have it in a case like that. So overall, the size of this lens is going to be very large. Actually, to show you how large, you're talking roughly the same size as the Canon 24-105 zoom lens. So this is much larger than a lot of the other stuff out there. A little bit larger than the Canon primes, also the Nikon primes. So it is a very, very large lens. It is a little bit skinnier, so that is good. It helps for putting it into your bag, but it is a little bit longer than I'm used to. Overall, it's a very heavy lens. You're talking 23 ounces. This is going to be also heavier than the Canon 35-1.4, also heavier than the Nikon 35-1.4. It's no comparison to the cheaper models from Canon and Nikon. Those $400 or $500 lenses are small. They're plastic feeling in comparison to something like this. This is definitely up to the quality of the best that Nikon has to offer, and also the Canon L series lenses. It's metal. It looks unbelievable. I've hardly ever seen a lens that looks as good as this. It has a piano black finish on it. The focusing ring is very grippy. It's very easy to move, and it's much wider than you'll find on most other lenses. Probably because of that lens size, the length of this lens, they were able to put a much larger focusing ring on there. All the buttons feel great. Everything snaps firmly into place. This is definitely a very high quality lens, and one that I would definitely take out with me anywhere. It is not completely weather sealed. Canon's 35-1.4 is technically not either. Nikon does claim that theirs is, so there could be a little bit of differences in that. You could scratch this up a little bit easier, I'd say, because it has such a nice finish on it. I would assume that it might scratch a little bit easier to wear off some of that gloss. But overall, this looks great. I haven't scratched it up yet, and I've taken it through some tests. But we'll take this lens and we'll show you what it can do. Now for this test, I've got the Sigma f1.4 hooked up onto the Canon 5D Mark III. We're going to go ahead and take a picture of this box at f1.4, f1.8, and f2.8 just to see how that compares. We'll actually go to f4, which should be a very, very sharp setting for this, just to see what we're missing by going into some of those wider apertures. We're going to go ahead and start this out at f1.4 at a 400th of a second. And then we're going to swap that down to f1.8. And then we're going to pull that down to f2.8. And then lastly, we'll do an f4 just for a comparison. And we'll see the difference on those and how they look. So after looking at the sharpness results on the Sigma, I'm blown away by what this lens is able to do. I'm consistently seeing great results at f1.4, typical to what I've been seeing on most prime lenses at about f2. The 50mm Canon, which is a great lens, the f1.4 for example, starts to get sharp at about f1.8. It's a little weak at f1.4. I did own the Sigma 30mm f1.4 as well. That is only for DX bodies, not full frame bodies. I just recently sold that lens, so I can't do a direct comparison, but I used it for about 2 years, and I can say at f1.4 it was okay, not great. I was pleased with the results, but it was nowhere near this. This definitely has about a one-stop advantage to virtually every prime lens I put this to. A couple maybe slight ones that I would throw in there that are a little bit better maybe is the Canon 85 1.2. At 1.4, 1.6, 1.8, that's where it starts to get sharp. At 1.2, it's pretty soft. But Sigma is definitely holding its own with some of the best that Canon or Nikon have to offer, and definitely as good as some of the prime lenses are at about f2. You're seeing those results at f1.4. Now that we've got our sharpness test out of the way, we'll go ahead and take a look at how bokeh looks on this lens. We're going to shoot this at f1.4, basically close focus the lens, and then we're going to snap it just to see what those out of focus circles look like. Make sure that they look nice and smooth. And overall what I'm seeing is that those they look very, very good. I don't see any signs of onion bokeh even when viewed at 100%. Overall, this lens looks great when dealing with that, which is very important because you're shooting this at f1.4 quite often. When you're going to pull out this lens, I guarantee that you're going to make a lot of use of that wide aperture. Now, just so you can basically see and hear some of the capabilities of this lens as far as focusing, what we're going to go ahead and do is take this lens, focus at it at infinity, and I'm just going to point it to the ground, and we'll see how quickly it can focus, and hopefully you'll hear the beep on that. Alright, 1, 2, 3. And so that was pretty quick. We're going from infinity to probably about 3 feet, so that's a pretty big swing for the lens. We'll do it one more time. 1, 2, 3. And we're looking at probably about half a second. It's not the quickest I've ever seen. It's not slow by any means. For a 35mm, you're probably going to be well above what I would consider the minimum standards for a lens like this. You're typically not following track or anything like that, so you can get away with a little bit slower. Either way, this lens is probably faster than you would ever need to for anything you would use this for. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're talking about these lenses is how they're going to handle lens flare. Now, as the sun gets into the image, it can pretty much ruin your image by losing contrast, and you'll see artifacts on the screen. So we're going to take a couple of pictures of the sun right here and see if we can make this camera stutter. We're going to go ahead and get the sun inside the frame and a couple with it just on the outside of the frame. And overall, I cannot make this camera or this lens hiccup at all when it comes to lens flare. The images still have plenty of contrast. You're hardly seeing any artifacts. They're very small, almost unnoticeable in the image. So even in bright sun, this is without the lens hood too, the lens seems to handle perfectly. So after completing this test, it's clear to say that this is an unbelievable lens. There's pretty much nothing else that's going to compare to this in this kind of price category especially. My focusing was spot on, quick. Vignetting wasn't too bad on it. We were looking at basically some of the sharpness tests that were unbelievable from f1.4, almost better than anything else I've used on any camera. And it just overall, everything was working very well on this lens throughout all of the tests. In the couple of days that I've had it, I put it through some kind of real world scenarios in addition to all of these tests, and it definitely performed admirably in everything that I put at it. The build quality, unbelievable. The fit and finish of this lens is top notch. Everything from lens caps to hoods to just how the lens moves works perfectly and is almost unbeatable for this. So highly recommend this lens. For $900, there is nothing else that comes close. I would even go to say that this is better than the Canon and Nikon offerings for any price for a 35mm 1.4. And I really hope that Sigma continues this. I really hope that they take this design and apply it to especially maybe a 50mm 1.4, something along those lines, 50mm 1.2. Canons are a little bit old on something like that. I'd love to see some great offerings from Sigma on something like that. Highly recommend it. Take a look at the results, make a decision for yourself, ask me any questions, but I think the results kind of speak for themselves.